My days working, taking care of my little ones can be a lot. I checked out care.com and it was so easy for me to find local, experienced, and background check sitters. Finding our babysitter was way more affordable than I thought. Care.com makes it super easy. Search for qualified candidates. You can view their profiles, read reviews and ratings, check their availability, send messages directly, and get the help that you need. Care.com should be every person's go-to.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, GoPowercat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Now, here's your host, GoPowercat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the Powercat Postgame Podcast. We hit the record button at 12:30 a.m. Have I told you, by the way, this is Tim Fitzgerald with Cole Carmody in the Cats and Dogs studio, although we're going to talk about the Cats, but we only got one dog in here. How much I dislike night games. And even Coach Kleiman knew about my displeasure for night games. He brought it up in the post-game press conference. I'm too old for this, Cole.
I don't think Coach Kleiman likes playing night games either.
No. Cats do win 44-31. And, folks, it wasn't pretty at times, but this was a good win. Cole, that's a good football team. And, you know, to win a two-score game against a team of that caliber is it really doesn't erase the Missouri game, but again, like I said in my post-game walk and talk, it kind of feels like last year when they bounced right back after a non-conference loss.
Yeah, it's hard to equate what this UCF team is because obviously it's their first year in the conference. I think if this game had been against a team like Oklahoma State, a traditional Oklahoma State team who is going to win anywhere from 7 to 10 games every year, because that's how Oklahoma State's been the last 10, 15 years under Mike Gundy, I kind of think that's where this UCF team is. I think they'll probably end up winning anywhere from 7 to 9 games this year. This is a really good team. They're going to finish in the top half of the conference. They're going to beat a lot of teams in the Big 12. This is going to be a win, I think, at the end of the year that K-State fans look back on and say, I'm happy that we played them now as opposed to playing them later in the year. Because if you play them later in the year and they get John Rice Plumlee back, the quarterback who was out for UCF, this game might look a little bit different.
Yeah, when they get him back, they're going to start beating people. But this sets K-State up really nicely. And, before we kind of get more into the game, the Big 12 sucks this year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no way around it. There's some pretty bad football teams. K-State is off, and then they go to Oklahoma State. And on a scale of 1 to 10, Oklahoma State's about a 1 right now. They literally, it feels like that program is falling apart. I don't know what they're going to do with that. That's a mess. Then they go to Texas Tech, which, I'm just going to point out that some people in the media thought Texas Tech would play for a Big 12 championship.
Are you some people?
Yeah, I was one of those people. And we're all idiots for thinking that. They lost at West Virginia.
And they also lost their quarterback with a broken leg.
Yeah. Then they come home. K-State comes home. It's just incredible. It's basically a month, 28 days. October 21st, they'll play TCU. I still don't know how good TCU is.
They look good against SMU today, but it wasn't really.
I don't think SMU is that good. And Houston, and they're bad. Then they go to Texas, clearly the best team in the conference right now. Then they come home and play Baylor. Bad. They go to Kansas, pretty good team. And then they play Iowa State. Bad. They've got, unless they screw up, an easy 4 wins left on this schedule. Easy. It's crazy. I've never seen the Big 12 like this. It's so out of character for this conference.
It is strange, but I also think it is a testament to what we believe K-State is. Even after that loss to Missouri, I don't think last year, even after the Oklahoma win, there were any games where you were like, this is going to be a win. I mean, I think back to the Texas Tech game. That was a game that everybody felt confident about, but it was still a game that K-State kind of struggled, and they didn't find their way until later in the game. I mean, I'm sorry, Fitz, but you look at this schedule, and there's no reason they can't be, 7-1 going into Austin? I mean, if they're not 7-1, if they don't win the rest of their games going into Austin, I mean, they're going to be favored in all those games.
Right.
So they will have literally had to have gotten upset. I thought I was holding out hope maybe that K-State would be underdogs against Texas Tech, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Nope. They'll probably be a 3 or a 4 point favorite. Yep. So they're going to be favored in every single game the rest of the season except for at Texas. Now, will they win all of those games? We know college football is crazy, but the team that I saw tonight, the offense that I saw tonight, will be able to score at will on every single team, including Texas, in this conference. That offense was really good tonight.
They were. And getting the offensive line kind of back in shape. Look, they were – the offensive line was really good when Christian Duffy was out there, except for the one time he fell down.
Yeah.
Kind of got it twisted up. But like Coach Kleiman said, now they've got 2 weeks. They're off next week. They got 2 weeks to get him, back up to speed, ready to go full time for the rest of the season. They can, Jake Clifton was a surprise player today. We didn't think he would be available. He took about 30 snaps. He was a step slow, and that hurt him. You could tell on, 2 long plays that he just didn't quite get to the tackle. But Austin Romaine, the first long run was him. There's no way around it. It was just him. He's kind of dove into the line and didn't really read the play at all and was out of position there from what I could tell. But overall, the defense was pretty good. But let's talk about something I talked about on the Walk and Talk because I want to get your feelings. As someone who's covered K-State basically since Bill Snyder arrived, seeing 82 plays run by a Kansas State offense is kind of an out-of-body experience because even Chris Kleiman's offenses haven't been doing that. But Colin Klein discovered some success with tempo last year, and the offense seems to like it. Gets them in a groove. They ran 82 plays, possessed the ball for just under 35 minutes. Limited, I guess they had 50. I said 54 in my walk and talk. They had 59 plays. UCF, which is way under their number. They still put up a lot of points. You score 31 points on 59 plays. You're doing something right. And when I asked Kleiman about it, he said, that's just a good offensive team. Man, they're going to give people trouble. But they played keep away. They played defense with their offense today in a masterful game plan that played out exactly like they wanted it to. They wanted to feed DJ Giddens the ball. He ran it 30 times for 207 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was targeted 10 times, made 8 catches for 86 yards. He was the leading rusher and receiver. So, yes, national media, there is life after Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah.
It was a really impressive performance.
It was like K-State said, you can't stop us, but you can try.
Right.
And UCF couldn't. And even when they did, K-State gave them 2 middle fingers and said, we're going to do it again and make you do it twice.
Yep.
And they couldn't stop them twice. I mean, there would be times where they would stop K-State on 1st and 10 to 1 yard, and then they would run basically the exact same play, get 6 or 7 yards, make it 3rd and manageable, and pick up the first down. I thought the offensive line, this was the best I've seen them play. I can't really remember. Obviously, it dates back to last year. This was the best game they've played this year by a mile. It got so bad that at the end of the game, UCF said, screw it. We're not even going to try and rush Will Howard. We're just going to stay there and try and play volleyball and bat the ball down. I mean, they had 1 sack on the day, but that was on a miscommunication, and it was a free blitzer from the corner who made the sack. So that was the best the offensive line has played the entire season. It's the best they've played. I would probably go back to a game like Oklahoma of last year. I mean, this was a dominant performance by the offensive line, and I think that's why they ran so many plays. I truly believe Colin Klein looked at that offensive line and said, you guys are having a great game, so we're going to ride behind you. And it was impressive, and I noticed the tempo immediately. They got that first down. Usually we're sitting in the press box and we can see a replay, and then we look down and then the live game happens. But they were going so quickly that we couldn't even see the replay because they got up on the ball. They got up on the ball and snapped it immediately. If they want to do that consistently, that is going to give teams a lot of trouble.
Yeah. It was fun brand. It was a fun brand of football to watch. Now that they do have some problems defensively they need to solve. And they have problems offensively. I thought Coach Kleiman was really honest about where his team is, that they're not even close to playing at the level they can play at. And I agree. I think the defense has given up a little bit too much right now. They're getting popped for one run a game, one significant run. And this one was, this was 48 yards right out of the gate, basically. And when you have, there were 143 total yards for them, and 48 came on one play. There's one play a game. They give up a long run, basically. So they got to lock that up. But they've got something going on with receivers. They're just not. They're not there, man. There's not good enough weapons at receiver. And I think Coach Kleiman knows they need to develop that. I'm not going to be surprised if after the 2-week layoff we see some new guys in the mix. K-State threw the ball 42 times today. 10 targets were towards the running back, DJ Giddens, and 10 were sent to tight ends. 8 sent it, and Garrett Oakley got in his first action, and so he's going to get more healthy apparently, and Will Swanson. Dude, these guys aren't getting open. They're just not.
It's a kind of a lost for words situation.
I know. I'm just going to say it. I'm really disappointed in Keegan Johnson. I think I put him down as Big 12 newcomer on my ballot. That's worse than the Texas Tech pick.
The weird part about this whole situation with the receivers is who would have thought at the beginning of the year that Jaden Jackson would be K-State's number one receiving option?
Yeah. I
mean, he is. And credit to Jaden Jackson. He has looked good in the spots that they have used him. But he is not a wide receiver one. They did not expect him to be the guy who is your number one target. Nope. That was supposed to be Keegan Johnson. And I understand he's still trying to come back from some things. But Keegan Johnson hasn't even started a game yet, Fitz. I don't know. Does that say more about Jaden Jackson or does that say more about Keegan Johnson?
I don't know, man.
I get it. And I understand Keegan Johnson. It's his first year in the program. But he was supposed to be an immediate impact guy. And he hasn't done it yet.
Nope.
We've seen flashes. I almost wonder if they don't trust him enough. And there was a moment in this game that really stood out to me. It was I'm sure we'll talk about the special teams that were very unspecial. But there was a kickoff return, I should say, where Keegan Johnson runs up, cuts off Phillip Brooks, and catches it.
Yep.
And Phillip Brooks is behind him, so you just lost a blocker. Keegan Johnson's supposed to be the guy that blocks for Phillip Brooks on that play, but it's kind of a short kick, so he ran up and caught it, and it was a good return. He made some guys miss, but Matthew Middleton, after the play immediately, Phillip Brooks got up and started having this conversation with Keegan Johnson, and Matthew Middleton walked out onto the field, grabbed Keegan Johnson, and chewed him out before he sent him back out on offense. To me, there is a reason why we haven't seen Keegan Johnson get as many reps at the receiver position as I think maybe I want to say majority. I'd probably say all the fans want him out there as much as he can be out there. And I think if K-State's at their best, he's out there. But I still think there's a little bit of a divide of trying to get him on the same page as everybody else.
It's frustrating to watch. It really is. So I guess where I'm going with this, despite winning a really competitive game by 2 touchdowns, well, there wasn't mixed.
Should have been 3.
No, jeez. Yeah, well, place kicking issues are popping back up. Coverage, kickoff coverage was shoddy. This is the worst special teams team I've seen at K-State in a long while. Now, credit to Jack Bloomer. He kicked once and had a really nice 69-yard bump. Nice. It was impressive. They kind of did a cool return on it, but no fooling the snapper. No.
Long snappers are athletes.
Man, Plattner was all over.
That was actually a really good play.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
Man, open field tackle on an elusive receiver because they duped a lot of the coverage unit. The up guy faked like it was a short punt.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I don't know.
I thought his answer after the game, Coach Kleiman's answer after the game on special teams was interesting. Because he was like, we got to get better.
Yep.
He's like, and then I don't want to say he made an excuse, but I do think there is something to taking a Jake Clifton, taking an Austin Romaine off of special teams. Because those are guys now that are going to be required to play defense majority of the time, so they're not going to play special teams. Well, who are you putting in to replace them? You're probably putting in a walk-on, an older guy who doesn't have the game experience, and honestly, the athleticism or skill set that an Austin Romaine or a Jake Clifton would have. So it's going to take some adjustment. But I put that on the coaching staff. I think the coaches have to put the guys in position to be successful. I don't know if that was the case with special teams tonight.
I agree. And after the break, I want to talk about the defense a little bit because there were some struggles. They gave up a lot of big plays. I mean, it's, again, 124 yards after the catch. I mean, they're not getting receivers on the ground. And just some absurd third and long calls from Joe Clanderman.
I did not understand the third and long draw, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, it was a weird day at the Bill, but a successful one. Let's put it that way. And when we come back, we're going to talk about that defense. We're going to talk about DJ Giddens' coming out party, and we're going to talk about how damn tough Will Howard is, because I don't think any of us expected him to go the entire game and take every snap for an offense that ran 82 plays and run the ball 7 times. We'll be right back.
GoPowerCat.com's Powercat Podcast continues after this short break.
Picture this nightmare scenario. You're hosting friends for the big game. It's neck and neck in the fourth quarter, and suddenly you realize you're out of drinks. You start to sweat. Your friends start to turn on you. You're forced to go on a last-second drink run and end up missing the game-winning touchdown while in line. Terrifying, isn't it? Luckily, you can avoid the drama with Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. With Drizzly, you can shop a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits, then get them delivered right to your watch party. Compare prices across multiple stores in your area, find the best deals on game day drinks, and get back to armchair quarterbacking from, you guessed it, your armchair. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
Welcome back to the Powercat Podcast.
Welcome back to the Powercat Postgame Podcast as it's approaching 1 a.m. here in the studio. It's 12:46, technically. I guess it's approaching.
Time is irrelevant whenever I'm with you, Fitz.
Well, I mean, I got to do some of Ryan Gilbert's work tonight still because he's in Vegas. That's a whole different topic. I hope he loses all of his bets. Let's talk about this defense. I think K-State has an opportunity to have an absolutely incredible defense if they could get these damn explosive plays under control.
It's weird because I feel like on these explosive plays, specifically the passes, they're so close to just breaking up the pass. Now, the flea flicker that Chris Kleiman said after the game, we knew that they were going to have trick plays. We knew they were going to have explosive plays, but it was all about limiting it. He said, if you would have told me that they would have only had one successful trick play, I probably would have took it. I think that's just kind of how Gus Malzahn operates on that UCF team. That UCF offense was fast.
Oh, amazing.
They were fast.
That's those Florida athletes. It's
just a different kind of speed. And so K-State's going to have to get used to that. I mean, this is going to be a matchup. I think that's going to be a pretty, I don't want to say rivalry, but both of these two programs are going to be competing at the top of this new conference. I'm fully on board with that. But yeah, like I look back on the touchdown pass that Will Lee gave up, which I don't know if you noticed this or not, but Will Lee did not play hardly at all in the fourth quarter. Into the third quarter, fourth quarter, hardly played. They were rolling with Jacob Parrish and Keenan Garber. And I almost wonder if that was not sending a message to Will Lee like, dude, you better figure it out, because they are counting on him. He was in position. All he had to do, put his arm up, and he doesn't make that catch for a touchdown.
I didn't understand him on that play at all. He tracked the ball more than the receiver. First of all, he's spending too much time worrying about where the ball is. But then he doesn't put his hand up when the ball arrives. What was the purpose of knowing where the ball was if you weren't going to do anything? It was weird. And he got chewed pretty good for that one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they give up a big run here and there, like I mentioned, and now it's a lot of yak. They're letting guys run free. But poor Joe Klanderman calls a bizarre blitz on a 3rd and long and gets caught with a perfect play call, a screenplay. Credit to UCF. Just totally sold it too. It was perfectly executed. And then they give up a 3rd and long when they back up, way up like a prevent defense, and they let a receiver just run through the defense.
It was a running back on the draw play.
Was it another draw?
That was on the draw play.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And you know what that reminded me of?
God.
That reminded me of a few years ago when the Chiefs were playing the Dallas Cowboys, and Alex Smith was the quarterback. Oh, a few years ago. That's longer than a few years ago. They threw, instead of throwing a Hail Mary, they literally just threw like a little slant pass to Tyreek Hill at the end of the half and had all the receivers downfield blocking, and he scored a touchdown. And it was like this innovative thing that's like what happened. K-State was literally playing 12 yards. Their linebackers were 12 yards depth, which is about twice where they normally are, on 3rd and 24, and UCF said, well, we're not even going to try. We don't trust our quarterback. By the way, K-State, how they only had one interception, I don't know. Timmy McClain was just throwing the ball up for grabs, but that was weird too. But K-State just decided, we don't really feel like tackling, and the guy gets a first down. So the tackling in space is something that they have to fix. That is a non-negotiable. If you cannot tackle in space, you will not beat good teams. You might be able to beat the Baylors. You might be able to beat the Iowa States, who don't have as many explosive playmakers. But if you want to compete with Texas, if you want to compete, dare I say, with Kansas,
you're
going to have to figure that out, because people will scheme it to where they know if it's one-on-one and I have my running back and you have your safety and I know your safety can't tackle in space, that's a win.
Well, you look at KU, they'll run Jalen Daniels and even out those numbers and use them. They got to figure it out. Now, on the upside is playing without Daniel Green for the first time since his season's over. Austin Romaine did a good job. After that long run, he kind of settled in. It helped that they had Jake Clifton. But Des Purnell leads the team with 7 tackles, stepped in to help the communication gap now with Daniel off the field. Their young linebackers are going to be really good. They just need more experience.
I think Jake Clifton's going to get that start at Oklahoma State, if I were to guess.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against Austin Romaine.
Oh, no, but yeah, Jake's clearly the backup. Mm-hmm. He was just injured in the first game of the season, and we didn't expect him back. Now, I'm going to call Chris Kleiman a liar. Chris, you're a stinking liar. Because he said Jake, wouldn't play. And then I asked him about Joe Jackson at the press conference. He said, no, we'll go with the other guys, the Shippers and White. Joe Jackson was on the field tonight. And it was the weird messed up play that Will ran to the goal line where the snap, he had to reach out and grab the snap, and he had Brooks coming across, and I think that play was supposed to go to Joe Jackson, and he just had to run it because it was all fouled up. Yeah,
he named about 4 running backs who they would end up playing, and it was him, and then Frias had a few carries as well. So, yes, that's how that works, right? He also said that we'll go day by day with Howard, which I'm sure we're going to talk about here in a second.
Stinking liar.
Fitz, they had me fooled. I thought there was no way that Will Howard would play in this game.
Well, any of us who saw him in postgame at Missouri didn't see how his knee or whatever was locked up. He couldn't bend it. I mean, So, but it turned out it was all soft tissue. It was all bruising, basically. It just got into joints, and I guess it was rather hideous. I mean, even Ben Sinnott was saying it was pretty bad. On Sunday, I didn't see any way he was going to play, but I knew Will, and he'd find a way, and he did.
They were going to have to drag him off that field. Literally, like, he is such a gamer, right? Like, if that last touchdown of him running through the UCF defense doesn't describe the kind of kid that Will Howard is, I mean, I don't know what will. That kid just wants to play football. Mm-hmm. And you look at the final numbers for him, they weren't anything spectacular through the air. But, I mean, Fitz, he ended up throwing for, 255 yards? 27 of 42 for 255 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, had one interception, which I don't necessarily think was his fault. Looked like Keegan Johnson kind of got bumped off his route a little bit. I think Keegan needs to be a little bit stronger there. Mm-hmm. He made it a good adjustment. He ran the same route later in the game. They completed the slant route, figured it out. But 255 yards through the air. But, I mean, the way he was able to run, 64 yards on the ground. I mean, we haven't seen Will Howard run like that since, Texas of 2021?
Yep. It was impressive. It really was. You know what? I'm really happy for DJ Giddens. Folks, if you're not familiar with DJ, he is incredibly shy. He really doesn't like to do media. I mean, he doesn't talk in the locker room. He's just a very, very quiet individual.
He's an introvert.
He's a total introvert. But you ask him a fishing question, and you got an answer. I mean, that he loves to fish. And he described his performance as a 20-pound catfish kind of day. I loved it. We're a nice kid. Really has overcome some stuff, and it's fun to watch. Basically the offensive player of the game was a kid from Junction City. The defensive player of the game was a kid from Topeka. So for all that recruiting, the Centennial League is where they found their talent. It's pretty cool.
And completely underrated recruits as well.
Yep. Typical state of Kansas recruits. Don't have the reps, don't have the exposure, don't have all that you get in Texas or Florida with spring football and all that. And they just kind of blossom when they get to college. It's fun to watch. It's been a big part of this story for Kansas State.
DJ Giddens is a grown man. Mm-hmm. He looks completely different than he did last year.
Yeah.
He came walking into the media room today, and I was like, that doesn't even look like the same kid that we saw last year at Iowa State when we talked to him for the first time. He said, somebody asked after the game, do you model your game after any NFL running backs? And he's like, honestly, I don't really watch football. He goes, but I watched Deuce Vaughn, and I had a move, a juke move that helped me score my touchdown that I learned from Deuce. And, it's just so cool to hear that, because that's the kind of stuff that you don't really think about when you have, we always talk about this player influenced this player and they teach him how to do things. Well, Deuce didn't teach him how to do that. He saw him do that, and he took that from him. That is invaluable, that you can have kids like that in your program. And the fact that DJ Giddens is only a sophomore, the future is very bright for this Kansas State offense.
Indeed it is. Will Howard, 27 of 42, had an interception. But again, I think that was on the receiver more than anything. I think all of his interceptions this year have been guys not getting it done on the route. Mm-hmm. I think. 255 total. His longest pass, though, was only 24 yards. He just chunked away at him, just picked him apart. They wanted to possess the ball, sustain drives, and they did it. Short of having some breakdowns in special teams and on defense, this was a really, really good performance for Kansas State football.
It was such a solid game. I mean, I never really felt like the game was in doubt. In the second quarter, you're like, this might get hairy. But K-State they showed that they were the better team. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, K-State was the better football team. From 1 to 22, K-State was better. And did they have their flaws? Was it a perfect game? No, it was not. But the fact that K-State can play probably a B, maybe B+ effort, and still find a way to win a game by 3 scores. Let's just call it how it is. They won by 3 scores. If you're a fan, you got to be feeling happy.
I don't know how I feel about that late touchdown by UCF.
I understand. I mean,
you play to the whistle, but it's just, I don't know. Yeah.
It's like he got caught up in the moment of like, oh, we're so close. Let's just score. Like, it's right there.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I mean, you want your team to feel positive. But like I told you in the press box, it's got to be kind of deflating to your team. Like, we know it was worse than that, what it actually was. We scored a meaningless touchdown in the final seconds. So
it's like hitting a home run off of a position player.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Does it count? It does, but there's a nice big old asterisk right next to it.
Well, K-State is now 3-1, 1-0 in the Big 12. Welcome to the Big 12, UCF. They were ready to make a statement, and it would have been. And like I said, you said that's a good team. That's going to be an upper half team. I don't know what their schedule is. I don't have it in front of me right now, but they're going to win a lot of games. They do play Cincinnati. I know that. They'll win that one. But it's going to be very interesting. And you're right. When they get their quarterback back, they'll be a whole nother beast. K-State got a break there in many ways because I thought it was going to be a game of backup quarterbacks, and it wasn't. Will Howard came through and played one hell of a football game. Just an impressive performance by the senior / junior / whatever he is with the COVID year thing. I leave this game feeling really optimistic about the team because they didn't play well in some areas. And I know that sounds odd, but the simple fact that Chris Kleiman's exactly right. There are some glaring things keeping this team from its top performance, and that's all on the table. And someone asked him about, you scored 44 points tonight. You feel good about your offense? No, we got things we can do. We got to pick up our receiving. So I mean, he's pushing. He's pushing. And now with an off week and a weird Friday night game at Oklahoma State, so you get an extra day before you go to Texas Tech, this kind of lines up really nice for Kansas State football.
The second toughest team on their schedule. They beat by 2 scores and played not their best game. You can let that mean whatever you want it to mean, but that is the second toughest team that they will play the rest of the season.
Yep. You're probably exactly right. KU might be, but boy, this conference stinks. Got that expansion done in a nick of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for this edition of the Postgame Podcast. If you actually listened to this before you went to bed after the game, I'm impressed. I genuinely am impressed that you did that. You might be drunk.
Yeah, drink some water if you're in Aggie. If you just got home from Aggieville.
Right. Drink that. That's important.
Yeah.
Drink that water. Don't hit your head on anything. That's it for the podcast. Remember, folks, The Insiders is going live in prime time on Monday because I had a doctor's appointment on Monday afternoon that has now been postponed. So we're going to still go live even though I'm not leaving town. It's been that kind of week, just a weird week, but it's going to be good to have an off week. We appreciate you listening.
Thank you for listening to the Powercat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get in on the action with the world's largest sports book right at your fingertips. Circa Sports Iowa is where the pros play. Enjoy the highest limits, lowest takeouts, competitive betting menus, and the best customer service. Now you can download, fund, and bet like a pro from anywhere in Iowa. Circa Sports Iowa. Sports betting the way it should be. Download your new bookie today. Visit circasports.com for details.
So
Spring training is right around the corner, which means it's time to start prepping for the fantasy baseball season. Join us on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, 4 times per week in January as part of the CBS Sports Podcast Network. Scott White, Chris Towers, and me, Frank Stanfield, will be delivering the latest news, rankings, and strategies in just 5 minutes. Make sure to download and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and everywhere else podcasts are found.